So do you think about it then in terms of being able to capture the general framework or the perception, perhaps, almost like guardrail, if you will, who your partner is, what they do, how they operate, and then just put that into some sort of a format that's consumable for your teams, for your customers? I've heard a variety of feedbacks on this conceptually in terms of marketplace. And I know some folks believe marketplaces, like there's the internal version that kind of like locked off, held lock and key, if you will, version where you want to keep it just for a customer and only for, versus the other end of the spectrum, which is this is your part of your marketing engine. Let's amplify the voices of our strongest partners, our highest valued, opportunities in that sense. How do you see this playing out over the next couple of years? Do you think it's meant to be locked down, or is it really just a bigger amplifier for what your brand can do to help a customer grow?
Well, I think there's when you say lockdown, I'm thinking about like a private offer where,
something like
we're
that.
going to a specific customers, and certainly, you can have your general offer, but that's not necessarily what's going to get negotiated and sold. So that's where private offers come in, and all of the hyperscaler vendors do the private offers approach. The other component of it too, I don't want to lose this in the equation. Like there's millions of marketplace offerings out there, right? And this is where effective co-selling and effective selling, partner selling come in that how do you stand out as that shiny quarter in the bucket full of shiny quarters? Because if you're a Microsoft or Google or an Amazon seller, I've got thousands of partners that all want to sell with me. Like, so as part of your marketing, you talked about the marketing message that goes along with that. How do you stand out? How do you figure out a co-branding, co-marketing, co-selling approach with your
And that's
partner?
from the partner's perspective, right? Not the vendor,
right.
but the partner.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And then conversely, from the hyperscaler perspective, some people call it vendor perspective, is, I need to know like who's the right fit. Like I need to know who's the right partner to bring into this opportunity because my credibility is at stake. So there's a lot that goes into that. Some of it's the principles that I talk about. There's other concepts and themes around effective co-selling that come along with that.
I think a lot about, as you're talking here, the idea of shared values. So not just the ability to do great work together, but even the foundational company values, the way you treat your people, how you think about your customer. There's this thing that's been going around for forever in SaaS, which is, customer first mentality and put your customer at the center of all you do. And I think there's two versions of that. There's a lip service version that you see in marketing and on websites. And then there's the actionable, like the work itself in terms of actually prioritizing and focusing on and putting the customer at the core of all of your efforts. And when I think about what you're describing in terms of marketplace, I'm picturing the latter, this idea of building a place where any and every customer who we can help and do something, potential customer, regardless, they can come here and they can access a plethora of resources across a variety of different, maybe it's verticals or tools, or we're just talking about partners, obviously in this case, solutions partners, et cetera. Do you think that the kind of next frontier, if you will, then is just scale? Like, is it just the biggest possible all-encompassing kind of one-stop shop? Or is it the other end where you just got to get hyper-focused on the two things or three things that you think your customer needs most to get value from you? Which way do you think this is going to shift? Or is it both, perhaps? I'm just curious.
I think so if I'm thinking about it from a seller to a customer, I'm looking at it at what again, this information rich world that we live in right now. I want to get down to the what is the one or two or three things that are going to be the most valuable for the customer, right? So I think that's more of that than what you're going to see in this broad world. I think is it's just like the internet. There's so much noise out there right now. How do you niche down further and further and further? And I think you're going to see more of that niche down.
I agree. I think that the 10, 5, if you will, most common marketplaces right now, there's been this interesting buzz, and I don't know how valid it is, just could be hearsay, but that question keeps coming up, at least in the folks that I talk to around, do we just go and find more, or do we diversify? Do we need more integration opportunities, options and whatnot? Do we need more partners to do our implementation, our migration, whatever it might be, specifically SaaS, obviously? Or is it about just like really thinking far outside the box? And I'm a big fan of focus right now. I think to your point, there is a lot of noise and a lot of distraction. And the more effective you are, obviously, in getting to what the root of your customer need is, and just double clicking on that over and over and over again, and just obsessing over the outcome of what that work does for them, and aligning all these different components into this collective like ROI centric engagement. I think that measure of focus is where the biggest winners are going to come out of the next, 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that as well, Barrett. Yeah, I
That's good.
agree.
Listen, you could also disagree. It could be entertaining.
No, I agree. And I think about like that list of all the different marketplaces and all the different permutations, and the fact that every SaaS organization can set up, and many do set up their own marketplaces. So I've got those. Like, how many places do I show up? How many listings do I post on? Right. What's the diminishing returns? Like, what I know that the top 5 are going to drive 80% of this number we talked about. So what's the diminishing return of the value of the additional 20%, right?
I'm glad you said that. That was going to be my next question too. Is like, we're talking about from the vendor, right? The hyperscaler's perspective, but from the partner perspective. And I think putting your eggs in one basket, to use an American expression, but like that idea of everything in one place, I tend to say one or two, pick one or two. I'd actually talked to a partner outside of, where I work now, HubSpot's ecosystem the other day, outside of the ecosystem. And they said, we're a partner of this one and this one. And I'll just agnostically say, like, those are two you'd both, you'd recognize in that sense. And they said, we're just not sure we want to add a third. And the individuals on the phone with me from my team said, yeah, but we have. And I said, like, hold on. Just pause for a second. Why don't you want to add more? And he said, I'm just worried about too much diversification, too much lack of focus. And so it seems like you tend to agree there, but I'd be curious if you want to challenge it. Do you think that having 2, 3, 4, 5 matters? Or is it really just, again, going back to, it's about the customer at the root of it all?
I think it's about the customer. I do think there's a certain amount of overhead. Right, publishing to more marketplaces requires time, effort, cost. So you have to think through that. Like, where are you going to niche down? What's going to be your greatest return? Where are the diminishing points of return? So I think there's, I think everybody's got a different equation. And certainly, if I think about the 3 hyperscalers in that world, in that domain, and as some of the SaaS software companies or ISVs think about it, some feel they need to be on all 3. Some niche down into 1 or maybe 2. So again, I think it has a lot to do with where your total addressable market is.
I couldn't agree more. And I think for me, personally, it's focus. And I'll just say it one more time again to have it, out in the world. I do think that the more we end up honing in on building marketplaces with meaning and purpose and intent, and being very clear about the boundaries of why we've done it. I don't usually get the question of how do I build a marketplace? At least today I don't have as much exposure there. I do get the question of how do I build a partner program? And the first bit of advice I always give is look at the first thing that your customer needs that you don't do right now and go figure out who does that. Because someone's doing it for them. That need is being solved. Go work with them first. Don't try and answer the question of what types of partners and how many of each, and just keep it really simple and say, what's that first problem I can solve, and focus there. It feels like you're echoing a similar sentiment in terms of building a marketplace and thinking about it as far as how do I focus on today, and then over time scale where it's necessary.
Yep, exactly. And then marketplace also aligns to channel or ecosystem strategy, right? So what I often find in organizations, especially ones that are legacy organizations that then became SaaS software companies, is that there's this legacy channel, legacy set of partners, whether it be transaction, influence, service, support, whatever, that don't necessarily align to the future state, to the marketplace state. So looking at that is also an important factor, and organizations don't often spend enough time there. And even within their own 4 walls, those organizations don't often talk to one another. So there's, we talk about where partners should sit in terms of the C-suite, but even when you look within the partner organization, there are various functions within the partner organization that don't talk to one another, that aren't aligned. So that's another thing that we do to try to help those organizations work more effectively.
It's brilliant. You are absolutely just speaking my language, my friend. So we're roughly at the end of time here. I want to give you a chance to talk about what you do real briefly, and then obviously discuss the show that you have too, just so the audience can go and check that out. Let's talk about, obviously, first and foremost, the Ultimate Partnerships business you have, and then just touch on, if you could, where folks can find the Ultimate Guide to Partnering, where they can find you on the internet as well.
Great. So Ultimate Partnerships, we do specific consulting work, again, mostly against independent software vendors. And I have a select group of clients that I work with individually. We are sort of pivoting the organization, if you will, right? So the Ultimate Guide to Partnering podcast has been here 6+ years and has grown in popularity. And we're going to be providing more content. Expect more of this masterclass approach, where we're aggregating content from several different, whether it be one of the hyperscalers coming on and looking left to right across their organization to help partners understand how to work more effectively with them. And we'll also be doing more, I'll call live or webinar type approaches where we'll pick a specific subject, whether it be marketplace, co-selling, go-to-market strategies, effective selling strategies and the like, and bring that and kind of deep dive from the lens of working effectively with the hyperscalers and across marketplaces and those functions. So that's where the business is pivoting. It's ultimateguidetopartnering.com. And you're the first one to know this. We're doing a little bit of a rebranding. So theultimatepartner.com is a new URL. We'll be refreshing the website. It's going to look a lot more like a media website as opposed to a consultancy website here soon. And we will continue to work individually with organizations, but also help bring more experts into the room to help more organizations be effective.
That's brilliant. Well, I'm signing up. I love this. This is fantastic.
Great.
Thank you for coming on and sharing so much great, valuable insight. It's been wonderful having a conversation with you. If folks want to reach out, do they shoot you a note on LinkedIn or email? What's the best way to get in touch?
LinkedIn is a great way. Direct message me on LinkedIn. I'm there all the time and I'd love to hear from all of your listeners. Thank you, Barrett.
Brilliant. Yeah, my pleasure, folks. Again, thank you for checking out the episode, listening. Please go ahead and like, subscribe, throw me a comment on a YouTube video if you'd like. We're on all platforms. And as always, we appreciate you sharing your stories. Thanks for the feedback. And again, this has been Outcomes. Take care.